أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم افتح علينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. O Lord, open the doors of wisdom and mercy and shower your blessings upon us. Amen. وصلى اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Amin. We are continuing on today with the 26th flash, Treatise for the Elderly, the 15th Hope. It's going to be read by three different readers, Mariam O, followed by Rayan, and followed by Mariam Sayed. So Mariam O, when you're ready, please begin. Thank you.
The 15th Hope. One time when I was in compulsory resistance in Emir Day, in what was a virtually solitary confinement, I became wearied of life due to the torments they indicated on me with their surveillance and arbitrary treatment, which I was found hard to bear, and I regretted having been released from prison. I longed for Denizli prison with all my spirit, and wanted to enter the grave. But while thinking, prison and the grave are preferable to such a life, and deciding to enter one or the other, divine grace came to my assistance. It bestowed onto the students of Medresitu Zira, whose pens were like duplicating machines, one of the machines which had just appeared. All at once, 500 copies, each of the valuable collections of the risale-i Nur, appeared from a single pen. Their presaging new victories made me love the distressing life and caused me to offer unending thanks. A while later, unable to endure the risale-i Nur victories, its covert enemies prompted the government to act against us. Again, life became difficult for me. Then, suddenly, dominical grace was manifested. The officers connected with the case, who were those most in need of risale-i Nur, studied the confiscated copies in the course of their studies most curiously and carefully, and its treatise gave their hearts a sense of bias toward it. As they began to appreciate it rather than criticize it, the risale-i Nur circle of study greatly expanded. It produced profits 100 times greater than our material losses, reducing to nothing our anxiety and distress. Then secret hostile dissemblers directed the government's attention toward my person. They recalled my former political activities. They aroused suspicions about me in both the judiciary and the education authorities and the police and the Home Affairs Office. These spread at the hand of different parties and the incitement of concealed communist anarchists. They started to pressure us and arrest us, confiscate parts of the risale-i Nur that fell into their hands. The activity of the risale-i Nur students came to the standstill. A number of officials made false accusations with no one at all, which no one at all could believe. They tried to spread around the most extraordinary slander, but they could make no one believe it. They arrested me during the coldest days of winter on some trite pretext and put me into solitary confinement in prison in a large and extremely cold ward, leaving me 2 days without a stove.
Thank you. Rayan, go ahead, please.
Pretext and put me into solitary confinement in prison in a large and extremely cold ward, leaving me 2 days without a stove. I was accustomed to light my stove several times a day in my small room and always had live coals in the brazier. So with my illness and weakness, I could endure it only with difficulty. While struggling in this situation, suffering from both a fever and the cold, and dreadful distress and anger, a truth unfolded in my heart through divine grace. It uttered the following warning to my spirit. You called prison the Madrasa-i Yusuf-i, the school of the prophet Joseph, and while indemnizely things like relief 1,000 times greater than your distress and spiritual profit, and the other prisoners benefiting from the risale-i Nur and its widespread triumphs, all made you offer endless thanks instead of complaining. They made each hour of your imprisonment and hardship the equivalent of 10 hours worship, and made those passing hours eternal. God willing, the calamity stricken in this third school of Joseph benefiting from the risale-i Nur and finding consolation will heat this cold, severe distress of yours and transform it into joy. If the people you are angry at are being deceived and are ill treating you without realizing it, they are not worth being angry at. And if they are tormenting you and causing you sufferingly knowingly out of spite and on account of misguidance, they will in a short time enter the solitary confinement of the grave due to the eternal execution of death, to suffer everlasting torment and torture. Their oppression is earning for you both merit and spiritual pleasures, and is making transient hours eternal, and is allowing you to perform scholarly and religious duties with sincerity. With all my strength, I exclaimed, all praise be to God. Out of humanity, I pitied those tyrants and prayed, O my sustainer, reform them, as I wrote in my statement to the Ministry of Eternal Affairs. In this new incident, the truly guilty are those tyrants who in 10 respects act unlawfully in the name of the law. They found extraordinary pretexts showing to anyone fair-minded with their slanders and fabrications, which would have made those who heard them laugh and lovers of the truth weep, that they can find no way to attack the risale-i Nur and its students in respect of the law and deviate into lunacy. For instance, the officials who spied on us for a month could find nothing incriminating, so they wrote out a memorandum saying, Said's servants brought rake from a shop and took it to him. They could find no one to sign the memo, but finally arrested a drunken stranger and got him to sign it under threat. Even he said, God forgive us, who signed this unextraordinary lie? So they were compelled to tear it up.
Thank you, Rayan Syed. Mariam Syed, go ahead, please.
A second example. Someone I did not know and still do not know lent his horse so that I could go out for a ride. I used to go out most days for a couple of hours in the summer. For my illness and to take some air, I had given my word that I would give the owner of the horse and phaeton books worth 50 liars, so as not to break my rule and become indebted to him. Could any harm come to such a thing? But then both the governor and the court officials and the police questioned us 50 times about the horse's owner. as though it were some important political event affecting public security. One person even said loyally that the horse was his and another that the phaeton was his. In order to put a stop to this meaningless question, and they were both arrested together with me. We watched numerous childish escapades like these two examples and laughed till we cried. And we understood that those who attack the risale-i and its students make fools of themselves. An amusing incident from among those examples. The reason given on the paper authorizing my arrest was disturbing public order. Not having seen the document, I told the public prosecutor, I slandered you last night. I said to police officer who was questioning me for the police chief, if I haven't served this country's public security as much as 1,000 public prosecutors and 1,000 police chiefs 3 times, may God.
May God damn me.
Just as at that point, when in those freezing conditions, I was in most need of rest and not catching colds and not thinking of the world. I was overcome with anger and vexation at those who had sent me into this intolerable exile, isolation, imprisonment, and oppression in a way that spelled out their hatred and ill intentions. Divine grace came to my assistance, and the following was imparted to my heart. Divine determining, which is pure justice, has a large part in the wrongful oppression which these people are inflicting on you. You have food to eat in this prison. The sustenance of yours called you here. It should be met with contentment and resignation. Dominical wisdom and mercy have a large part, which is to illuminate those in this prison and console them. And to gain your reward, this share should be met with endless thanks and patience. Your soul has a part in it, due to its faults which you did not know. In the face of this, you should tell your soul by repenting and seeking forgiveness that it deserved this blow. Some of your secret enemies have a part in it. With their intrigues and deceiving certain ignorance and suspicions, officials and inciting them to such oppression. In the face of this share, the terrible immaterial blows dealt by the risale-i on those dissemblers have avenged you completely. That is enough for them. The final part is the officials who were the actual means in the face of this share. It is an act of magnanimity to forgive them in accordance with the rule. Those who suppress their anger and forgive people, really God loves those who do God. For whether they wanted to or not, they may have benefited from the risale-i in respect of belief, although they looked at with the intention of criticizing it.
Thank you, Mariam Sayed. Fariha, go ahead. I felt such happiness and gratitude at this voracious warning that I decided to commit some harmless offense and incur a prison sentence so that I might remain in this new school of Joseph and perhaps even help those who were opposed to me. For someone like me who was 75 years old without attachment, and only 5 out of the 70 people he loved in this world remained alive. The grave was 100 times preferable to this prison. For 70,000 copies of the treatises of the risale-i were in free circulation and would perform my duties connected with the risale-i. And I had brothers and sisters and heirs who would continue to serve belief with thousands of tongues in place of my one tongue. This prison too was 100 times more comfortable and more beneficial than the unfree liberty outside, subject to the tyranny and oppression. For in place of having to suffer all alone outside the arbitrary treatment of hundreds of officials in prison, together with hundreds of other prisoners, one only has to suffer the slight arbitrariness of one or two people, like the prison governor and chief warder, which will yield benefits. And in the face of this, one receives the brotherly kindness and consolation of many fellow prisoners. With the thought that the compassion of Islam and human nature are shown as kindness to the elderly in such a position, thus turning the hardship of prison into mercy, I became resigned to prison. At the time I attended this third trial, because of my difficulty in remaining on my feet due to weakness, old age, and illness, I sat on a chair outside the door of the court. The judge suddenly appeared and angrily asked in insulting manner, "Why isn't he waiting on his feet?" I was angry at this unkindness in the face of my old age. Then I looked and saw that a large number of Muslims had gathered around us and were watching in most kind and brotherly fashion and not dispersing. I was suddenly warned of the following two truths. The first, the covert enemies of myself and the risale-i had deceived certain ingenious officials with the intention of putting a stop to the risale-i's conquests by destroying the public's good opinion of me, which in any event I did not want, and of destroying my character in the people's view. They had prompted those officials to act contemptuously towards me in that way. See these 100 people in place of that one man's insults. In return for the risale-i's service to believe as a divine favor, they are kindly offering their sympathy by appreciating your service and both welcoming you and seeing you off. Even while I was in the examining magistrate's office on the second day of the trial, answering the public prosecutor's questions, around 1,000 people gathered in the courtyard opposite the court windows and showed their concern. They appeared to be telling them through the tongue of disposition not to pressurize us. The police could not make them disperse. It was imparted to my heart that in this dangerous age, these people want a true solace, an inextinguishable light, powerful belief, and certain good news about eternal happiness, and that they search for these by nature. They must have heard that what they're searching for is to be found in the risale-i, so that they show my unimportant person much more attention than I deserve, because I have performed some small services for belief. Second truth, I was reminded that in return for the ill treatment a few contemptuous, deceived individuals inflicted on us with the intention of insulting us and destroying public regard for us, due to their unfounded suspicions of our disturbing public order, was the applause and appreciation of innumerable people of reality and forthcoming generations. Yes, through the strength of certain affirmative belief in every part of this country, the risale-i and its students halt the awesome corruption and efforts of anarchy to destroy public order under the veil of communism. They work to maintain public order and security so that these 20 years, 3 or 4 related courts and the police of 10 provinces have not been able to find or record any incidents involving the infringement of public order connected with the risale-i students, who are very numerous and found in every part of the country. And the fair-minded police of 3 provinces stated, the risale-i students are moral police. They assist us in preserving public order. Through certain affirmative belief, they leave in everyone's head who reads the risale-i something that restrains them from committing misdemeanors. They work to maintain public order. An example of this was Denizli prison, when the risale-i entered there and Fruits of Belief was written for the prisoners. Within a space of 3 or 4 months, more than 200 of those prisoners became so extraordinarily obedient and acquired such religious and righteous conduct that a man who had murdered 3 or 4 people refrained from killing bedbugs even. They became completely compassionate, harmless members of the nation. The officials were astonished at the situation and looked on in appreciation. Some youths even said before receiving their sentences, if the Nurjus remain in prison, we shall try to have ourselves convicted so that we can be taught by them and become like them. We shall reform ourselves through their instructions. So those who accuse the risale-i students, who are thus disturbing public order, are surely seriously deceived or have been fooled, or knowingly or unknowingly are deceiving the government on account of anarchy and try to crush and repress us. We say this to them. Since death is not to be killed and the grave is not to be closed, and the travelers in this guest house of the world, convoy after convoy, enter the earth with great speed and ado, and vanish, for sure we shall part from one another very soon. You shall receive the penalty for your tyranny in awful fashion. At the very least, you shall mount the gallows of death and eternal extinction, which form the discharge papers of the oppressed people of belief. The fleeting pleasures you have received in this world, imagining them to be everlasting, will be transformed into everlasting grievous pains. Regretfully, our secret dissembling enemies sometimes attach the name of Sufism to the reality of Islam, which has been gained and preserved through the swords and blood of the 100 million martyrs at the rank of saints and heroic war veterans of this religious nation. While the way of Sufism is only a single ray of that sun, they show it to be the sun and deceive certain lax government officials, calling the risale-i students Sufis and members of a political society. Because they work effectively for the truths of the Quran and belief, they want to incite them against us. We say to them and those who listen to them against us, what we told the just court at Denizli. Let you be sacrificed for this sacred truth, for which hundreds of millions of people have been sacrificed. Even if you set fire to the world around us, we who sacrifice ourselves for the truth of the Quran will not lay down our arms before atheism. We shall not abandon our sacred duty, God willing. Thanks to the sacred solace arising from belief in the Quran for the pains and despair at the adventures of my old age, I would not exchange this most distressing year of my old age for 10 of the happiest years of my youth, especially since For those who repent and perform the obligatory prayers, each hour in prison is equivalent of 10 hours worship. And with respect to merit, each transient day spent in illness and under oppression gains 10 days of perpetual life. I thus understood from those warnings just how deserving of thanks are these days for someone like me, awaiting his turn at the door of the grave. I exclaimed, "Endless thanks be to my sustainer," and was happy at my old age and pleased with my imprisonment. For life does not stop, it passes swiftly. If it passes in pleasure and happiness, since the passing of pleasure is pain, it becomes transient, passing without thanks and in heedlessness. Leaving sins in the place of pleasures, it departs. Whereas if it passes in prison and hardship, since the passing of pain is a sort of pleasure, and since it is considered to be a sort of worship, it becomes perpetual in one respect, and through its good fruits gains everlasting life. It becomes atonement for the mistakes that were the cause of past sins and imprisonment, and purifies them. From this point of view, the prisoners who perform the compulsory parts of the obligatory prayers should offer thanks in patience. And this concludes the 15th hope. Alhamdulillah. And thank you to Mariam O, Mariam and Rayan Sayed for very patient reading. I salute you all, really. That was very brave. And wow, this was like interesting story where the author starts sharing off exactly what he went through, and then how was he able to turn that situation to his advantage, or really, you know, how we say, oh, experiences in and of themselves are nothing. It's really what you make out of these experiences is what matters at the end of the day. So yeah, it was exciting listening to the author's reflection. And yay, we should applaud for each other. You're right, Mariam. Oh, let's use this applaud icon. All right, so let's get started with this. Is there anyone who wants to share their excitement? Just, you know, something that popped in right there and then while we were reading this? Feel free to raise your hand. Mariam, oh, go ahead, please.
Mine's not exactly a takeaway. It's just I just don't understand what this text is trying to give away, and why like what this text is trying to tell us, and why it was in that setting and stuff like that. So
good question. Thank you. That's even my concern. So yay, we're on the same boat, and I'm sure others have this concern as well. So really, what is this text actually trying to convey? And how does it apply to me, to my situation? So it's definitely based out of a personal experience that the author went through, and then how he was able to turn that into a positive experience for himself in terms of connecting it to the purpose of his existence. And we should all be concerned with the purpose of our existence and how we can take lessons from what he's sharing and try to bring it to our existence as well, and try to make our experiences meaningful as well. So yes, just like a really broad view of what this is about, but thank you for your question. Is there anyone else who wants to get us started or has something to say or add? H. Biza, yes, go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the beautiful reading. To all of our readers, a lot has been read, but I guess my immediate takeaway, in a nutshell, would be, as Faria has mentioned, the author kind of here takes us on a journey, and he recalls these specific events where he's in usually some sort of prison or state of suffering of some sorts. And at the end of each, there seems to be a change of events where something good or pleasurable comes about, or either in its outcome or within or within a realization the author has within himself. And I think a lot of it has to do with, I think certain words that attracted my attention in reading this was how this relates to divine determining, um, what the author refers to as dominical wisdom and mercy, and I guess at the end of the day, coming to a state of like happiness and pleasure and thanks, in relation to states that I might not find preferable. So as I was listening to you guys recall the events, or read the events of the author recalling of things that have happened to him, I was thinking about like potentially, states. I mean, we are reading the 26th Flash, which is this is the treatise for the elderly, right? I was looking at the beginning of that too, where he says that he it's very intentional in him explicitly kind of recalling specific afflictions or sorrows that he has to share with us, and to show kind of how the remedies, how he benefits from the remedies from the Quran. But I guess, what was I going to say? Right. So, in reading or listening to you guys, I was thinking about different states of being where I might feel like I'm in a state of, in a prison, or I might be undergoing some sort of lack of justice or some sort of suffering or something that may not be preferable to me, so that I can also benefit from this. So that would be my just initial comments.
Thank you, Hatice, Beza. Very helpful comments. Yeah, it helps to open up the stage a bit more. And you're right, some interesting pointers were brought up, concepts of divine determining, divine wisdom. And now I was thinking about it in terms of like even the experience that he's going through, where, they're trying to, whatever they're doing, the actions they're doing, it's for a good cause. It's to spread the truth. It's to, help people out with understanding the meaning of their existence. And I guess I think I've seen too many movies growing up. You know how they say the truth shall prevail. And so no matter what happens, once you're really indulged in for a good cause, no matter what kind of flood comes in, it's something, the truth is out there. It's clear. It's brought. It's given existence. It will be available no matter what. And I see Tulu's hand up. Go ahead, Tulu.
Hey, salams. I like this like it's treatise of the elderly portion of the risale-i. I find it, I don't know, I find something about it quite I guess I worry as to how my old age is going to be, and so I enjoy reading this ones that he writes about his old age. But I'm a little, I like this 26th or 16th, whatever we're reading. I like the reading. But the part about it that I'm kind of confused by, or like is causing me some confusion, is I don't know, it sounds like he's like enjoying being in prison, or like he wanted to be in prison, or like he like put himself into prison on purpose. And like I guess some confusion around, and like it sounds like he's like kind of exalting like difficult situations, which creates some confusion for me because then for me, I'm like, well, okay, if I'm not in a current difficult situation, should I go put myself into a difficult situation because that's better for me in some way? Or or it causes me to feel guilt when I'm not in a difficult situation, because maybe if I was in a more difficult situation, then maybe there's like more blessing or something more from suffering. And so those are my points. One, I enjoyed this reading, and two, I'm a little confused, or it's causing me some guilt because it seems like he's kind of communicating that suffering is better. That's what I'm getting from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tulu, for expressing your thoughts and even bringing up this concern of yours. It makes perfect sense in terms of like whatever was brought into the author, whatever experience he was going through, he was able to find solace with it. He reconciled within himself that, oh, this is fine. I'd rather be here than, trying to like get out of the situation, I guess, physically. Because, yeah, like if you think about it, he's inside the prison and that's a physical situation, but everything is happening within one's awareness and consciousness. So all the thoughts and emotions and feelings that are imparted onto us, they need to be reconciled, not in a physical manner, but in a manner that befits our human nature that pertains to our existence. And I know it sounds very theoretical, but so for example, let's say the following analogy comes to my mind. If a student at school takes the final exam but does not pass the course, then obviously the teacher, the school puts him into summer school. And so, just the ideal man of being at summer school while the rest of my friends are like partying, going out and everything. And here I am stuck inside this prison for 2 months. Are you kidding me? But that can be one way to handle the situation, be in agony, but at the same time, on the other side of the coin, you're like, wait a minute, yeah, obviously there must be a reason and a purpose that I'm put in here, so I must really try to do the best I can, within this situation. Sure, it's summertime, but let me fulfill the purpose of my existence. Let me take the courses and try to study well and pass it. And at the same time, I can do a little bit of, enjoy like little outdoor activities as well, but not as much as my friends are doing it, but like just like maybe once or twice per week. So, it's all about happening within our awareness and consciousness. So yes, like you were saying that it seemed that the author felt, pleased, or he's like, oh, let me just remain in prison. And if you think about it, even practically speaking, most people, like all these prominent people who even write books, something breakthrough happened while they're in prison. Like, I'm not going to name the authors, but like most of them, they're like, oh cool, well, I'm well taken care of. Food is provided, I have a bed, I can go to the bathroom and everything, people are at my service. It's like a maybe 0.005 star hotel. It's not like a 5-star hotel, but hey, I'm taken care of, so why not? So, and I don't know if the author meant that way, but he's like, okay, so this is my situation, that's given to me, so let me try to work it out. And the way I understood this in terms of divine determining really encompasses everything that I'm experiencing right now within my given condition. So even all of us right now, this whole worldwide crisis that we are all experiencing, that's also divine determining. Nobody has any control over it. This is it. So how can we utilize this experience and bring it to the purpose of our existence? Because otherwise I can go crazy. And yeah, personally, I was like, oh my God, I want to go out. I want to go do this. I want to go play. I want to go, biking. Like, I can't even do any of the stuff. So, and it's really, we have to bring everything to fulfilling the purpose of our existence. Is the purpose of my existence just to go and play Frisbee? I mean, that would be ridiculous then. I mean, I know that I'm bound to die. I must have a bigger purpose. So why don't I utilize this situation and sort of work things out, look into my feelings and try to question the source of existence of these feelings, because they're given onto me. They're given onto me for a reason. So I must do something with it. So as long as I'm utilizing all my emotions, feelings for their true purpose, which is to connect with the source of my existence, then, this is, I am in alignment. I'm utilizing my free will in alignment with the will of my creator. And what's the purpose of my existence? Really to get to know who I am and who my Lord is at the end of the day. But these were just some of the thoughts that came to me while, you expressed your concern. So I'm not sure if that was a little helpful. So I see Miriam. Oh, you have your hand up. Miriam, go ahead, please. Thank you for your patience, by the way.
What?
Thank you for being patient, by the way.
Oh, no problem. So I have something else to say about his question. So there could be two ways to look at it. Either he's not necessarily enjoying his stay there, but he's trying to look to the good side of it and see why he's there and try to find the true meaning of that. Or well, actually, no, never mind. There are no two ways. There's only one way to look at it, and that's the only way. I just realized that. So I guess he's not looking at it like, I think the last time I was in class, we were actually using an example like this. Like, if someone took your bike and threw it on the floor and that was your only means of transportation, then you would get angry, of course, but there could be another way to look at that situation, to not get frustrated and yell at the person, but instead use that to connect and use your feelings to understand how it would be if you were in the same situation, so not to do that to another person. And so I just thought that situation could also help this. But yeah, I don't think that it's necessarily him enjoying it. It's more like he's accepting that he needs this for his education in this world. And he's not being frustrated with that. He's accepting that his creator knows what is best. And he's looking to see how to connect with this situation with him. And so that's why it probably looks like he's so calm and understanding about the situation. But that's what I took from, that's what my answer is so far.
Thank you, Miriam. That was a beautiful comment, by the way. I totally agree with what you said. He's trying to make use of the situation to find meaning to his existence. And yeah, he's accepting that he needs to be educated, and this is the best way for him, or like even for any of us, any kind of situation, that's the best way for us to be educated in and with. And the example of that bike that you brought in again, with the feeling of anger, you're right, because I was looking into the next page, and the verse sort of, I'll be curious and interested in deciphering more on how can we understand this verse better, where it says, those who suppress their anger and forgive people, verily God loves those who do good. That's from Quran chapter 3, verse 134. So yeah, it totally connects with what you said. Thank you, Miriam. And I see Ali Murmur, your hand is up. Go ahead, please.
Thank you for beautiful, beautiful comments and readings. Can you please highlight the line in the middle, not there, not in this page, which says this present two in the middle. This present two was 100 times more comfortable. Yeah, you got it. Now, as the question Talo asked, can Talo read this sentence, please? And whether you find it satisfactory or not?
Yes, I can read it.
Yes.
This prison too was 100 times more comfortable and more beneficial than the unfree liberty outside, subject to that of tyranny and oppression. Uh, well,
Did you get your answer?
no, no, because then the question I have now is, okay, so should I go to prison? Should I like take myself, go do
No.
something, get me to prison?
Don't you read the sentence again, please? Why
This-
he was seeking to go to prison? He explained to her why. Read it again, please, carefully.
Yeah. This prison too was 100 times more comfortable and more beneficial than the unfree liberty outside, subject to that tyranny and oppression.
Yeah, he is preferring the best one, comfortable one. He's clever. He's
Okay.
not preferring. He is not preferring suffering. It is against human nature to prefer suffering. We are not created. There is no way that I can suffer. I can prefer suffering so that I will be rewarded for it. God will say, look, I gave you the sense not to suffer. That is the reason we human beings are expected to run away from the punishment in the hereafter because we are given the sense not to suffer. If I prefer to suffer, it means I am contradicting my creation. So the sense of suffering is definitely rejected by my nature, by the way I am created and the universe is created, the purpose of the existence of the universe, and also teachings that we receive from our Creator says, keep away from suffering, keep away from pain. If we prefer the pain, it means I would prefer to rebel God and go to hell in the end of my life. But I'm expected not to do that in my creation, in the evidence that I can see in the universe, and also in the teachings that I receive from my Creator. In general, suffering is rejected by my nature, by the witnessing of the way that the universe is created, and also by the scripture that we receive from the Creator. We should keep away from suffering. And if we read the text carefully, because the unfree
Yeah, there's no voice.
in prison, you are living in your cell and comfortable. Sorry for my interruption in the internet connection. I don't know how it is now. Now, it's okay, thank you. It is this text, as Miriam touched upon beautifully and in a very meaningful way, teaches me how I should utilize the conditions in which I am created. For this, I have to have, now, actually in this page, please, Hamim, please, can you underline in the page it was there? or all, no, the previous page, I think. No. No. Yeah, here it is. The last paragraph, beginning of last paragraph, divine determining, which is pure justice. That's it. Which is pure justice. We have to understand that whoever is created, even my creation, is for a good purpose. We have to be reasonable to understand that the one who gave me existence is not a crazy creator. I don't see any sign that there is a the sign of craziness in the existence. So I must understand that I am created to make progress in my existence, to learn under various conditions. I am subject to education, so that different kinds of types of creation must take place, and I have to go through all of them and understand that the purpose in my existence is to provide me with means that I can make progress in my human capacity, so that I will fulfill my purpose in existence. As the example was given previously, if I am in the school, if I may seem to be deprived of many enjoyments outside, but I am learning, and this is better for me because I am making progress. It is an opportunity. I have to be thankful for this kind of opportunity, because you see that people pay a lot of money to undergo difficulties in education system. We know that is our preference. We know that we have to go to school, we have to attend the class, we have to do lots of assignments, and we have to take notes and study and be deprived of many enjoyments outside. And we pay for it. Why? Why do we pay for it? Because the purpose of my existence to make progress. And these difficult conditions, seemingly difficult conditions, provide me the best opportunities to make progress. So all the text we read today, I think 4, 5, 6 pages of text, the author is trying to teach us that under any circumstances, and also Maryam put it very concise way, in a very concise way, under any circumstances, I am created. My creator is giving me the opportunity to fulfill my purpose in this world. It means to make progress, to learn, to educate myself. That's a beautiful opportunity for us. Rather than criticizing it, we have to see the wisdom in its existence. Why, I should ask myself, try to see what is being taught here so that I will benefit from it and I will make progress in it. And the whole text is giving many examples that whatever is created ultimately turned out to be the best opportunity for the author, so that the author saw the wisdom in the divine determining, which is just only pure justice, and also provides extra merciful results as a result of being patient with, or perseverance against anything that I may find somehow disturbing for me. This is a beautiful example. Thank you very much.
Thank you for adding your comments as well. It makes the case more clearer. I see that somebody has something on the chat box, so let me see what that is. He's being oppressed on the outside. So Hildar, do you want to comment on this? Or?
No, I mean, I think the text, he explains it in the text, but in that the oppression he suffers is not something he likes, and that's occurring outside of prison, whereas in prison, he barely is inflicted with much at all. Only has to deal with a few people. And as he points out, that's sort of the manifestation of divine determining. That's his will, power and will. And there is nothing, can be nothing but pure justice in that. So you have food to eat in this prison, sustenance for yours, you called you here. So, you know, it is better he's there than on quote unquote the outside. So, and he is very accepting and content with that position. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for adding your thoughts as well. Is there anyone else who wants to make a comment, a question, a concern? It's, you know, it's interesting. I was thinking about institutions in general. You know, there's a lot of politics that goes on in any kind of organization and institution. And so even a place like, you would go, okay, so now I'm in prison, but you know, there's still other kind of politics going on in there as well. It is as if, you know, one's human side is always activated in terms of what is it that my spirit yearns for, or, you know, how can whatever is it that I'm experiencing, feelings, can that fulfill the purpose of my existence? Yeah, that's what I want to share, because if it was not for experiencing all the politics that's going on, then I mean, whatever we are made to experience, it's very dynamic. It's constantly happening, change is happening. I'm bombarded with feelings, concerns, and otherwise, if I don't have any of this, then then I become stagnant in terms of I'm not activating my human qualities to connect to the source of my existence and thus fulfill the purpose of my existence. So I just wanted to share that. Go ahead, Suhaldar.
I just wanted to say that to me, the most important aspect here is, you know, living with divine determining, in that your life is essentially I don't want to say governed necessarily, but because it almost seems like you don't have a choice, but it's as if it's divine determining is sort of who you are in a way. It's like how it manifests is it manifests in your life. So it's very personal. That's why I think Nursi is so content, because he's seeing that his life is being acted upon by one who must act not only with his power and will, absolute, but therefore must have absolute knowledge and must act with pure and absolute justice, and absolute mercy, and absolute wisdom. In this regard, I mean, this is not absolving him of his choice, because if he thinks that if it were up to his choosing, he would rather be on the outside. But it shows that, you know, what is right for the situation for you depends on your concern or interest, I guess. And his interest or concern is sort of illuminating the message of the Quran. And this is the best place for him, as determined by the one who is responsible for the Quran, or is the whose speech it is. So that's what I sort of find interesting, is that divine determining is a very personal thing for him, and he doesn't. While everyone thinks that initially any situation they're in, it's not something they want to be in. If you reorient the way in which you look at things, the lens by which you view the world, and really more, as importantly, your life, then the situation itself almost becomes secondary in a sense, because you see what it really means. And I think that's what keeps Nursi, going, keeps writing, and keeps sort of, you know, doing what he did, even with all of what occurred. So with divine determining, I guess you never know.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I agree with what you shared. Experiences are just like, in and of themselves, it's really nothing. It's like the peel of a fruit, really. It's really what I, yeah, how I turn that situation, or really what I make out of it, is my education, actually. And that's really fulfilling the purpose of one's existence. So thank you for that. Ali Murmur, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Now, can we get to the page 328? And the paragraph, I felt such happiness, and then underneath it, in this new school of Joseph. No, not underneath, in that paragraph. Yeah, third line. In this new school of Joseph. Yeah, and perhaps even help those who were oppressed to me. Sorry, who were opposed to me. Now, this is, of course, referring to the story of Joseph in the Quran, which is extremely, extremely interesting. I would like really to study the deep meaning of this chapter of the Quran. Everything is told is full of meaning. In general, what we see that Joseph was imprisoned. This part of the section of the story of Joseph told in the Quran, which is related to our subject now. Joseph was imprisoned by a tyrant which with no reason but on a false accusation. Exactly was the author is saying, I am imprisoned on a false accusation. No evidence whatsoever, it is just an excuse. Now, the story of Joseph tells us that the king was keeping Joseph in dungeon for no reason, really, not on a just base. But what happened? Joseph interpreted the dream. That's how the story goes. And he helped the king with the right interpretation of his dream, and it was a help for the king, the responsible person. It is just a story, so we have to understand the lesson in it. And then those people accused Joseph to be an dishonest or how do you say, unchaste person. So wanted to insult a woman, but the reality was just the women wanted to benefit from Joseph's beauty. But he didn't revenge. He didn't say that you people kept me in prison for so many years, and am I going to help you? No, he didn't say this. He said, I am going to help you. He took over the administration of the financial affairs and helped the generation according to what the people there, according to that's this teaching of the Quran. It is not important, but the duration is not for 1 day or 1 month. 14 years, he took care of the affairs of the community, the people, and helped the king to administer his people in the best way, and the people were protected, saved from suffering hunger, and also suffer from any kind of sufferings. And the author says, I have to be in the same way. This is the best way. I have to help the people who were opposed to me, try to help them. In fact, in his life, as we know, the government and that administration of that time wanted to oppress him, but he helped people to by teaching them that this world is the opportunity for us to do good actions and follow the instructions of our Creator, which is just about the paragraph that is shared in the window, or the verse. Yeah. Now the verse, it is very interesting. Those who suppress their anger, وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ, and very important, forgive people. That's what the Quran teaches. It's very interesting. Those who suppress their anger, suppressing your anger is one virtue, and plus forgive people who harmed them. And verily God loves those who do good. So that is how we can gain God's love, by oppressing our anger. It means not acting on a selfish, egoistic base, just oppressing it. Although the text doesn't say deny your anger. No, you are angry, you are angry. That's how you are created. But you are given the free will. Whether you let go of this anger or you can oppress it. You have the free will. Train yourself, educate yourself, learn how to suppress your anger. That's what the text is teaching us and suggesting us. try to learn how to oppress your anger. And plus, forgive people. What does it mean, forgive people? Now, you don't forgive ordinary people. Those people who do some wrong to you, who treat you in an unjust way, they need to be forgiven. Not an ordinary innocent people to be forgiven. So it means forgive people who oppress you, who treat you in an unjust way. That is very important how to understand the verse. وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ doesn't mean that ordinary people, I forgive all the people outside. I have no problem with them. It is not forgiving. They will laugh at me. What did we do that you are forgiving us? But forgive people means those people who do wrong to you, my duty is to suppress my anger, which is very natural to be angry with them, but use my free will to suppress it, and plus forgive my enemy, forgive those people who do wrong to me. And this is the good deed, a good action, and God loves this action. Under hard conditions, you achieve, if you do this, you are successful in harnessing your anger, and even further forgiving the people and having a peaceful relationship with them. How it is possible? It doesn't mean that we should let the unjust treatment continue, but depending on the conditions, we have to defend ourselves. Depending on the conditions, we have to defend ourselves, but at the same time, we should never react without controlling our anger and trying to revenge. No, we have to try to establish justice, not to revenge. What justice requires. If it is possible, do it. If it is not possible, forgive people. Forgive people. Don't keep anger within yourself. That is why this verse is so important. And also the example of Joseph, the story told in the Quran, is so impressive for me that I must be ready to help my opponents. They will try to harm me. I will try to benefit them. I will try to help them. In fact, last point, we see this attitude in the life of the Prophet Muhammad, when especially during his first period of life in Mecca. Those people around him were rejecting him, insulting him, but he was trying to show them the way, the path which leads them to salvation, means getting to know who their creator is, so that they will save their eternal life, their worldly life, to be happy with their creator, to enjoy your lot which God gave them, and be pleased with God, so that they will be also gaining the pleasure of their God, so they will save their future life. That was the struggle of the messenger Muhammad against the enmity, hatred of his people. That is the hard thing that we have to prepare ourselves to practice in our practical life. Thank you very much.
Oh, interesting. Thank you for sharing this. It brings up really a different perspective into how one views everything in a, so, it's never react without controlling your anger, you were saying. And after that, then you can go ahead and do what needs to be done, either forgive or take the person to court or whatever action is required. Okay. Even, so this, even the sense of revenge as well. So whatever you do with it, right? So let's say if somebody I'm just gonna throw like a physical example, punches you, you punch back, two punches again, one side kick, you throw a side kick again. I mean, it's like a revenge as in you get what you give in kind of scenario, but it's interesting. Yeah, I need to think a little more. Payback time, yeah, but yeah, suppressing the anger is it's a virtue. And then I guess seeking revenge would be based on the terms. And then, okay, if you want to forgive, then okay, fine. You threw two side kicks at me, fine, go for it. Yeah, let me think more a little bit on this. Because this anger part is interesting. Like, I mean, it comes out a lot. Even I don't know much about the judicial system, but I was even thinking when, people take somebody to court for being, treated unjustly, and then, so if they decide to forgive them, then that's it, Otherwise, there are consequences to whatever is being faced. Wow, my God, look at all the hands. 1, 2, 3. Da, da, da. I'll go with H. Beza. Go ahead, please.
Oh, thank you. Wow, I'm so excited to see all these hands up as well. Yeah, I what I wanted to say was that, I guess based on what Brother Ali has said, I think what he was referring to, at least in my understanding, was that initial, in an act of injustice, if I feel the need to get revenge, as opposed to perhaps, justice or something like that for myself, then that would be transgressing against myself or my enemy in that case. So I was just trying to reconcile this idea of forgiveness with the idea of, if as we had discussed a couple weeks ago with the famous bike, if someone does something to my bike, being able to forgive them, but at the same time going to the court and or whatever and making taking the necessary steps to make that claim or that complaint. So I guess I wonder if I can say then seeking justice becomes a form of forgiveness as well, so long as I do it within its proper context, which is a very vague term that I'm using, but within the context that whatever action that I take is to not seek revenge. And seeking revenge then goes to basically wanting to cause the other party additional harm because of whatever suffering I may have undergone. So in which case I think, I mean, I just remembered like one thing that I was told recently, and I don't know to what degree this is true, but like apparently people have been like stealing other people's like stimulus checks in the mail, and I don't know to what degree they can actually utilize that. But if that is the case, for example, then, on one hand, of course, justice needs to be served, and the person who's stealing, if there is such a person, needs to be, needs to, pay the price of whatever it is that they're doing, as in give back the checks. But at the same time, it does, I was also thinking like to what extent or, what must the conditions of the person who must be stealing such a thing, if that were to be true, be that so that they are forced, or if they feel they're impelled to do such an action. So I guess trying to see or empathize with that person as well, to try to understand, I think at least for me, it becomes easier to quote unquote forgive, or understand where the other person is coming from, And even if they've wronged me or wronged someone else, and definitely easier when one is not part of the equation, but I think it just becomes easier trying to look at things from somebody else's perspective. But I guess in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is, in also seeking going through the order of the universe to seek quote unquote justice for myself, that also becomes a form of also, I want to say, forgiveness as well, in bringing what is right or what is just to that person as well, if that makes sense.
Thank you, HBIS. Yeah, that makes sense, and justice shall be established. So I see Mariam and Rayan. Go ahead, please, and then Mariam will after that.
Okay. I just wanted to say that going back to anger, like what I'm just saying is that the enemy within us is anger. Like we have to, like it's like an enemy within us. Like we have to try to stop it. Like if anger comes out, like there's really no stopping it, because like you could try to control yourself. Like how there are many enemies out there. Like like in the war, like you're battling with it. That's how we battle with anger. Like we have to try controlling it. We try many methods in different ways. I just want to bring up that point.
And going back to what Sam said,
Go ahead, Mariam. Sorry.
and going back to what Ryan said about anger, I would like to say that anger, so it's like, yeah, you cannot use the same thing all the time to help like someone or something. And meaning like anger, you have to control it. So like you have to find a cure for it, like to stop it. So it's like so for example, you cannot have the same cure for every problem.
Thank you both for sharing your comments. Interesting indeed. Yeah, it's making me think about this anger within me. That's really, it's a battle. You're right. The battle is going on within me. This war within me when I am not able to combat my feelings and emotions for the way they're supposed to. And it's very normal to be angry at something if somebody does, yeah, the bike thing again. If somebody throws the bike, obviously the anger is given. It's very human to be angry, but then the battle now is within me. Like, how do I utilize this anger to fulfill the purpose of my existence? And yes, so we have to, the enemy then becomes like a frenemy. So utilize this anger as a friend, as a messenger to connect with the source of my existence. Yes, I'm made in this way. What are you telling me? This feeling of anger, you're just communicating with it. And so you act accordingly in terms of, assess the situation. If, how do you want to proceed, either revenge or you want to forgive the person. So thank you, both of you, Mariam and Rayan. Very good to hear your comments. And then we have Mariam O. Go ahead, please. Mary Mastermer, go ahead, please.
Yeah, sorry. So, is it all right if I share my notes?
Hooray, yes. Go ahead, please.
So my first note for the 15th Hope, I think it was a 26 flash. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So my first note was elderliness signifies knowledge and experience. Passing of pleasure is pain. There is always a message in an experience. Those who suppress their anger and forgive people, verily God loves who do good. That was the verse in the read today. Oppress means to do injustice. Suffering is rejected by my nature. Accept that your Creator knows best. When you do this, Life will become easier and more acceptable. What is right for you depends on your interest or concern. The best way is to teach the people who caused injustice to you. You can best forgive people this way. And going back to my fourth note, those who suppress their anger and forgive people, verily God loves those who do good. Suppressing your anger doesn't mean ignoring it. You must be ready for your opponents. They will try to harm you, and you will help them like the Prophet Muhammad did. And you will try to help them like the Prophet Muhammad did instead of trying to harm them back. And that was my last note. There weren't a lot of notes for this one, but yeah, that's all I have.
Mariam, very thoughtful note. I thank you for sharing this. It's really something to think more on. Thank you. And yeah, people are applauding and thumbs up from, okay, wonderful. Then we have Tolu. Tolu, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Mariam. I think I just want to reiterate what has already been said. With regards to anger, anger is an emotion that was given to us. We found ourselves with anger. It's an emotion that we all experience. And so it was given to us. I found anger there. And so for me, I think about what's the purpose of anger. So someone does something to me, and I believe anger is there to tell us that, hey, an injustice has been done. I think the emotion anger, and if in it of itself, there's nothing wrong with that emotion, I think the part where that could be quote unquote suppressed is then the reaction to the anger. If you get angry and then you go punch someone in the face, it's probably not the right thing to do. But then, if for instance, in the case of a stimulus check being stolen, you went to go, the anger got you to go talk to the police about your check being stolen, then that is the right action versus punching someone in the face. And so I just want to reiterate that anger was given to us. And so the question is, why was this given to me? What is the purpose of this feeling that I have? What is then up to us is how we then react to that feeling. So yeah, thank you.
Tolu, thank you very much also for sharing your takeaways from today's discussion. We appreciate it. Then we have Muhammad Saeed. Go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, everybody. Regarding one point Mariam shared from her notes, the passing of pleasure is pain. It is in the page 331 in the last paragraph. The author actually, the author puts two conditions actually in this on his note. One of them is passing without thanks and in heedlessness. So what I understand from here is that passing of pleasure becomes pain if it is transient for me. But if I connect that pleasure to the giver, to the endless source of pleasure, to the source of the existence, who must be absolute, then it is not a transient pleasure anymore. So then that kind of pleasure, when it passes, which everything passes away, it doesn't give me pain. I just wanted to add this note. Thank you very much again.
Muhammad Said, again, thank you for this beautiful comment. Indeed, only when I connect any feeling and emotion, and in this case, the feeling of pleasure, whenever any feeling is connected to its source of existence, that's when the human being finds eternal happiness. So yeah, that's a very good point to bear in mind. Thank you. Are there any last comments, concerns? given. Oh, Mariam Ostermeyer, go ahead, please.
I only have one small little thing. It's just a note added on. It just really caught my attention. Anger is there to tell you that an injustice has been done.
Indeed, yes. It's a messenger. It brings lots and lots of messages. So the more messages we get, the better we'll be able to connect these pieces of the puzzle and see the bigger picture. Alhamdulillah. Thank you all for your wonderful contributions and beautiful comments. Really, this made it a very blessing or blissful discussion. Alhamdulillah. With this, next Saturday, we will continue on with the 16th Hope, and we'll see what the author walks us with his journey of being released from the prison and how is he connecting that experience with his existence. Until then, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save except that which you've taught us. Indeed, you are all knowledgeable, all wise. Wa akhiru da'wahum alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. بحرمة سر سورة الفاتحة